Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading into Ein Gedi, this really remarkable spot.
We are, and you've provided a fantastic range of sources for us to dig into.
Yeah, everything from, the visitor guides with practical tips.
Right, like the flood warnings, which are definitely important to heed for accessing the gorges.
Absolutely. And also mentioning that the first waterfall in Nahal David is wheelchair accessible, which is great.
It is good information. But our mission today, really, is to look past the logistics.
For sure. We want to pull out the most fascinating bits, the stuff that really makes Ein Gedi stand out from these sources you sent.
Exactly. What makes it such a place of wonder beyond just being a destination?
And what first jumps out, I think, is just how, well, unlikely it seems. You've got this incredibly dry, harsh desert. And then, bam, this explosion of green life.
Fed constantly, year-round, by 4 different springs.
Right. The Nahal David, the Ein Gedi spring itself, Shulamit Spring, and Aragat Spring.
That continuous flow in that climate, it immediately makes you ask, where's all this water coming from?
Yeah, it's not like the seasonal streams you find elsewhere in the Judean hills that depend on rain.
Precisely. The geology suggests something else is going on. The main hypothesis points towards potentially a large underground water body.
Like a hidden lake?
Kind of, yeah. Drawing water from a really wide area north-southwest, acting like this unseen pipeline feeding the springs down near the Dead Sea.
Wow. A hidden lifeline. Okay, so that water supports this incredible burst of life. Let's talk about that biodiversity.
It's really a crossroads, ecologically speaking.
The sources mention different phytogeographical regions meeting there. Sounds technical, but what does it mean on the ground?
Well, you've got plants you'd expect in a Mediterranean climate mixing with Saharan desert species. That's interesting enough.
But there's more, right?
Yes, the really special part is this finger almost of the Sudanic or semi-tropical zone pushing up along the Rift Valley.
Like a little piece of East Africa.
Exactly. So you find plants there that need intense heat, but also reliable water species native to East African savannas. You won't find them anywhere else in Israel.
That's amazing. East African plants just thriving there. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. There's the Jericho balsam, which some call Egyptian balsam. In Hebrew, it's zam-mitzri.
And it produces dates.
It does, the Jericho date. But they're not like the sweet medjool dates you might be used to. They're often a bit bitter, actually. People traditionally soak them first.
Interesting. What else?
Then you have the bantry tree or moringa. This one's quite versatile.
How so?
Well, the leaves are edible, very nutritious. There's talk of medicinal uses. The fruit has oil. And traditionally, it was even used to help nursing mothers with milk production.
A real multitasker. Any other standouts?
Definitely the toothbrush plant. Salvadora persica is the scientific name, but it's often called swak or miswak.
Toothbrush plant. Because people use it for.
Exactly that, cleaning their teeth. For centuries, people have used its twigs. It's still used today. And what's really significant is its connection to Muslim tradition. It's mentioned in the hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Oh, really?
Yes, he reportedly used it, especially before prayer, highlighting its role in hygiene. You can actually still buy siwak twigs in markets near places like Al-Aqsa.
So practical, medicinal, and culturally significant. That really speaks to the unique flora.
Okay, what about the animals? The ibex comes up a lot.
Ah, the ibex. Yes, it's the symbol of the National Park Authority here. And their conservation has been a real success story.
They seem perfectly built for that landscape.
They absolutely are. If you look at their feet, their hooves are incredible. They have this hard outer edge for grip.
Like climbing shoes?
Sort of, yeah. And a softer, flexible pad inside. It lets them just scale these unbelievably steep cliffs.
Which keeps them safe from predators, I guess.
Exactly. Predators mostly can't follow them up there. It's their primary defense strategy.
That makes sense. Now, I admit I sometimes get ibex and gazelles mixed up. Is there an easy way to tell? There is, and it's mostly about where you see them. Gazelles are built for speed on flatter ground. Think open plateaus.
Okay.
Their hooves are designed for running fast. So if it's bounding gracefully across a relatively level area, probably a gazelle.
And the ibex?
If you see an animal picking its way really skillfully up a sheer rock face or cliff, that's your ibex.
Cliffs for ibex, plateaus for gazelles.
Got it.
And what about the biblical term ayala?
Yeah, ayala is more of a general term in the Bible. Could mean deer or gazelle-like creatures, not one specific species. Though, interestingly, the Persian fallow deer, the yakmer, which is related, has been reintroduced successfully to the region.
Fascinating. Okay, let's switch gears completely now. History. Ein Gedi has layers of it. That Chalcolithic find sounds incredible.
It really was a landmark discovery, and kind of accidental in a way.
How so?
Well, back in 1961, researchers were exploring caves in Nahal Mishmar nearby. They're actually looking for more Dead Sea Scrolls. And instead, tucked away in this cave, they stumbled upon this hoard. Hundreds of artifacts from the Chalcolithic period.
Chalcolithics.
Yeah.
That's Copper Stone Age, right?
Exactly. Copper and stone tools used side by side. This was before writing was developed, around 5,000 years ago.
So this find is huge because it's pre-writing.
Yes. It's the biggest collection of stuff we have from that specific time. It gives us this amazing window into their lives, their technology, maybe even their beliefs.
What kind of things were in this treasure trove?
A real mix. Weapons like mace heads, elaborate objects carved from ivory.
Ivory. So that suggests trade.
Definitely. With Africa, presumably. And lots of copper items, obviously, which also points to trade networks to get the raw metal.
Anything else unusual?
They found items made with antimony.
Antimony. Isn't that toxic?
Highly toxic, yes. Which makes you think about the craftspeople who worked with it. They must have suffered from, breathing problems, other health issues. A sort of dark side to early metallurgy.
A sobering thought. So where were these Chalcolithic people living? Was Ein Gedi a major center?
They were spread out across the Jordan Desert region, big settlements known near the northern Dead Sea and down in the Beersheba Valley. Ein Gedi sits kind of between those areas.
So like a connection point.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But the nature of the find itself, all these valuable, sometimes dangerous objects hidden in a cave. It doesn't look like a place where people live day to day.
More like storage. Or something else.
The thinking leans towards something special, probably ritualistic.
Rituals. What makes them think that?
Well, the sheer number of items, over 400 including fragments. And later, archaeologist Pesach Baradon made a strong connection between this cave hoard and a Chalcolithic temple site discovered just south of Ein Gedi Spring.
A temple nearby.
Exactly, suggesting these objects might have been temple treasures, maybe hidden away for safekeeping or used in ceremonies there.
Do we have an example of a specific ritual object?
One of the most striking pieces is a copper standard, sort of like a scepter head shaped like an ibex head with a bronze handle.
An ibex again. That symbolism keeps popping up.
It does. It clearly had deep significance, even way back then.
Okay, from these ancient rituals, let's jump forward to the Bible. Ein Gedi features prominently in the story of King Saul and David.
Yes, it's one of the most famous stories associated with the place. The book of Samuel tells how Saul, feeling threatened by David's growing fame, was hunting him down.
And David fled to the wilderness, including Ein Gedi specifically mentioned.
Right. The terrain there with its cliffs and caves was perfect refuge.
And the key encounter happens inside one of those caves. The sources mention Saul going in to cover his feet. What exactly does that mean?
It's a biblical euphemism. It means he went in to use the restroom, basically.
Okay. So he goes into this cave alone.
Probably without his bodyguards, needing privacy, making him incredibly vulnerable.
And David and his men are hiding deeper inside.
Exactly. They see him totally unaware, and David's men are like, this is it, your chance, kill him.
But David refuses. Why? It seems like the perfect opportunity.
It's a really pivotal moment. David's reasoning, as the text presents it, is respect for Saul's position as the Lord's anointed.
God's chosen king.
Right. David wouldn't harm him. But it's also seen as setting a precedent. David knows he's likely the next king.
So he doesn't want regicide to become the norm.
That's a strong interpretation, yes. He's thinking about the stability of the future kingdom, respect the office even if the person currently holding it is flawed or failing.
So instead of killing Saul, he does something symbolic.
He does. He creeps up quietly and just cuts off a corner of Saul's robe.
Just a piece of cloth. Why is that significant?
Because it echoes an earlier event. The prophet Samuel had torn Saul's robe years before.
Oh, right.
As a sign that God was tearing the kingdom away from Saul. So when David later shows Saul this piece of cloth...
It's not just proving I could have killed you.
Exactly. It's a powerful, maybe even unintentional reminder of that prophecy. It subtly points to David's destiny.
And how does Saul react when David confronts him with the piece of robe?
He's overcome. He seems to finally accept reality. He calls David my son, acknowledges David will be king.
And asks him not to wipe out his family, right?
Yes, he pleads for his descendants. It's a moment of realization and maybe resignation for Saul. There's actually a famous painting by James Tissot that captures that scene really well. David showing the cloth to Saul in the cave.
And picturing this whole drama playing out in the actual landscape of Ein Gedi.
Yeah.
The cliffs, the caves, the water source, it makes the story feel so much more real.
It absolutely does. The geography makes the narrative plausible. The physical place brings the text to life.
The sources also mentioned a specific cave name, Mara Dodin,
Yes, Mara Dodim. Dodim in Hebrew means beloved ones or friends.
friends, like Saul and David were at one point.
Exactly. Their relationship was complex, mentor-mentee, father-in-law, son-in-law, friends, rivals. So the name Cave of the Beloved Friends is, well, it's evocative, isn't it?
It definitely adds another layer. We can't know for sure if that was the cave, but the name itself is suggestive.
It reinforces how these biblical stories are rooted in the actual land.
And of course, the stream itself is called Nahal David.
A very direct link. David hid in many places during his flight from Saul, but Ein Gedi is certainly one of the most memorable spots linked to him.
What about the name Ein Gedi itself? We know Ein means spring. What about Gedi?
Gedi usually means a young goat, like a kid, maybe an ibex kid fitting the wildlife.
Makes sense.
But there's another possibility. It might be related to the Hebrew word gad, which means luck or fortune.
Ah, so spring of the kid or spring of fortune?
Potentially both.
Yeah.
It suggests that ancient people saw Ein Gedi not just as a place with water and animals, but as a fundamentally blessed, prosperous, maybe even lucky spot.
A true oasis in every sense. It's clear from all this that Ein Gedi is so much more than just a pretty nature reserve.
Oh, definitely. We've touched on the unique geology, the surprising flora and fauna, the echoes of that really ancient Chalcolithic culture, and these profound biblical connections.
Layers upon layers.
Exactly. It transforms your understanding from just, a tourist spot to a place incredibly rich in ecological and historical meaning.
It really makes you think. When you learn about the deep history and the unique ecology of a place like Ein Gedi, how does that change how you might look at other seemingly isolated or special locations you come across? It definitely gives you a richer perspective, doesn't it? Makes you wonder what stories might be hidden elsewhere. Thanks for diving into this with me.